I've mentioned in previous videos how important it is for us as gardeners to learn from our previous mistakes, especially in the following year's planning. And we've reached the time of the year where our temperatures, as much as our climate is good for pretty much all around here growing, we've reached the time of the year where temperatures can be pretty scorching. So I've shown you previously how I've improved my garden with additional trellising to support some of the vertical growing that I've been doing, but it also really helps to very simply assemble a simple shading structure, or just reinforce your shading to protect them at these particular times of the season. And as I've said before, I'm not keen on a lot of manual labor, but gardening forces us to do a lot of things, and we do it out of love. So today I'll just show you how I simply attach it. So this is the end product that has served me quite well with the shading. As you can see, that's my squash leaping over from the other bed. Quite rude sleeping in other beds. But over here is my indeterminate tomatoes. You can grow them up from the center and start training them as they grow. You don't typically need to trellis them up as usual. So let's get into the trenches and get started on how we got this erected. So now getting into it, the tools of the trade, my mallet, my hacksaw, different types of pliers, conduit piping 20 millimeters by 2 meters, shade netting 35 centimeters, 35% coverage at the bottom and 80% on top as it needs more, my cable ties, some malleable wire that I use for help the trellising climb, some rebar which I've cut into 25 centimeter long strips, as well as my ladder that helps me get into those hard to reach places at the back, as long as my jingles are with me to accompany me. So the very first step is to knock in your rebar. Try to get it as close to the walls and edges as possible. I put them on 2 different sides. It helps support the structure really well. And then you pole vault over these with the conduit, which you secure directly over the rebar. It fits in quite steadily and quite readily, and already the structure is starting to become a little bit strong. It has some kickback in terms of tension, which is good. You want that, but just make sure that you get it deep enough into the soil bed so that it is nice and reinforced. And there we have the first part of the structure completed. And then the very next part is to start cutting the malleable wire on top. Sometimes a little bit tricky to cut. Measure it first. Make sure you're using the correct tools. The garden can be quite unpredictable in that you can risk life and limb and compromise your health and safety by cutting yourself. In this particular instance, I did already cut my hands with a hacksaw, and I was already almost minus a digit or two. The next step is to secure with cable ties. Again, I tried to stay away from drills, so cable ties does the job very well, securing them on top. Again, just measure some more of that conduit, which you secure across the structure. It just gives it additional tension and additional strength to help make it a little bit robust. Like I said, it can be a little bit elastic in that it kicks back, so just make sure you secure it with a good strong boot, and then securing that into the top. As I've said, the last step is to just make sure that you're folding in your edges. These do give some gashes in the garden, so aside from the other dangers like the creatures lurking beneath the soil or the canopy of the plants, you also have the risk of cutting your hands and causing calluses if you don't tie away these. I cut a little bit extra so that you can use that extra wire just to secure it. And the last step is to secure the shading. Then have a little bit extra shading at the side just to get the sun, and again you can adjust it as you need. And this is the finished structure. As you can see, this one is slightly higher. I didn't want a typical trellising plants in this particular bed, but I did need the higher overhead shading. As you can see over here, again you can see that I've secured some of the plants that are growing and guiding them up